So you folks probably know by now that I'm a pretty shameless guy. I don't exactly feel embarrassed or guilty by the things that I like. I have a rather simple approach to life and fun, comedy, and entertainment. If I'm not hurting anybody beyond cringe-related injuries, I think I'm doing alright. If a thing that I enjoy isn't hurting more than somebody's feelings in a self-inflicted way, then that thing is pretty okay in my books as well. But Patreon asked today what my guilty pleasures are, so I guess we'll take a look at the things I know I shouldn't enjoy as much as I do. To keep on brand, we'll start with some video game stuff, and then we'll move into some anime stuff. Then we'll get into some more off-brand personal stuff and close out the video. Let's start by looking at some anime game tropes. I'd cover anime games themselves and just list a few off that I enjoy, but most of my channel is filled with the stuff that would normally be put on a list like this. The Senran Kaguras and Onichanbaras and the likes, but I've gave enough opinion on them already. So let's look at the pitfalls of some anime games instead. I call out tropes a lot in my reviews, or at least let you guys know when a game's characters or plot will boil down to a trope. And while yes, sometimes the tropes I call out do bother me, more often than not, I'm calling them out because doing so is a necessary part of a review. The tropey tsundere characters, the tropey dits, the tropey generic anime boy lead, I don't really hate these things. They're often shallow and uninspired, but they're also tropes for a reason. They're defined and tested archetypes that have been proven to have chemistry and elicit audience response. I can't deny that they often get me too, and that I'm part of the audience that such a response is elicited from. I am at least partially responsible for the proliferation of such archetypes. Does this mean I'd prefer tropes to characters with more originality or depth? Absolutely not, but it's hard for me to deny that generic characters do have a place among my interests. Next, the friendship is magic trope that has come in a way to plague JRPGs, I enjoy half the time. I've claimed it before as a pet peeve and I stand by that, but that's because it's often used in place of a climax to a story that had so much more potential. But even when this undermines the potential of a story, the trope doesn't necessarily come across as all bad. When you spend so much time with characters in an RPG, you watch them grow. Sometimes they battle each other as much as their enemies and also battle their own ideals. So it's nice to see this point where it all collapses to a single moment of unification, where the characters have overcome all they need to take on the final challenge. In a word, it's uplifting, as long as it's not the literal power of friendship that kills the enemy anyway. I gotta say I'm a huge fan of any game with its own original collectible card game that you can play with NPCs, so long as the card game is optional. A lot of people likely think of Final Fantasy VIII when this is mentioned, or maybe Gwent from The Witcher, but I think mostly of the Trails of Cold Steel games and Tokyo Xanadu. Their game, Blade, steals the show. This is such a fun card game, so fun in fact that the Tokyo Xanadu Collector's Edition came with a deck for the game, and it's my biggest regret for not having bought the CE. Trails of Cold Steel 3 as well is looking to have an awesome Magic the Gathering styled card game to take part in. Distractions like this become so involved and attractive that you can sink as much time into them as the game itself, and I'd feel bad for being so distracted if it just weren't so damn fun. Now, who could possibly hate huge ass weapons? Not to be confused with huge ass weapons. I know there's a lot of people now who actually look at this stuff and laugh, but man, there is something in me on a base level that just says, this is badass. Always has been, always will be. I'm not even sure there's a limit to weapon size that they could hit. That would change my mind. You'd think Berserk and Final Fantasy VII and Trigun would hit that mark by now, or even the Dark Souls games, but nope. The most extreme I've ever seen this go to was Asura's Wrath, where two of our characters were fighting on the moon. One of them launches the main character off the planet and into space, then proceeds to stab his sword through him as he's falling to Earth. The sword at this point is so long that it literally stretches from halfway between the Earth and the moon, stabs through the Earth, and still comes out the other side, and you know what? It f***ing rocks. And moving away from anime game stuff, I'm sorry guys, but David Cage games. I know, they suck, but they also kind of don't suck. Okay, so they do suck, like, almost entirely, but I still like them. The thing is, David Cage is a terrible storyteller and his plots have holes so wide that you could throw that sword from Asura's Wrath in them and lose sight of it forever. But in every single one of his games, there's at least a small handful of moments that really stick with me. Moments that if you just slice them out of the game, they serve as strong and impactful lessons and experiences that you can learn from and grow from into a better, stronger person. Moments Moments that challenge your understanding towards certain topics, that can emotionally devastate you if you allow yourself to get invested. If it weren't for these moments, I would have nothing to hang on to in these games. But thanks, or rather no thanks to them, they make David Cage games an undeniable guilty pleasure of mine. And can I also say that I actually like quick time events? At least I like them when they're a cinematic addition to a battle or an event, and they don't replace them entirely. They're just such fun eye candy and what catapults most situations into feeling truly badass. God of War and Uncharted come to mind here. And the failure states for quick time events, my god. Some of you may wince at this, but the more brutal and visceral they are, the better. The eyeball scene from Dead Space, the river scene from Tomb Raider, stuff like this just jolts me when I'm playing a game. And for what it's all worth, it's what makes me feel quick time events get a bad rap. Although I guess the eyeball scene wasn't quite a quick time event, more like a slow time event, but I digress. Old school FMV powered point and click games hit me in some strange way I don't understand. Most of the time I think the games are kind of ugly, but in a way they feel anything but ugly. There's just something unique to their presentation, something uncanny enough that even when a game isn't meant to be a horror, it still feels unsettling. And that feeling in a way also just kind of relaxes me. It's strange to explain, but that's how I am with most horror games too. Tense atmospheres and weird designs just relax me. Some of my favorites for this are the 2 Darkseid games and of course the 2 Phantasmagorias. And platformers. No, I don't feel any weird guilt over my love of platformers, but oddly enough, over the years I've come to understand that I like B-grade platformers way more than the heavy hitters. I will take a game like Vex over a game like Mario Sunshine any day. Now, perhaps a bit easier to work with since I don't get to talk about it that much, but I do have a number of guilty pleasures for. We're gonna take a look at some anime now. I'm not usually one to enjoy a shonen. I typically find the plot loop annoying and the characters too slow to develop for my interest. Or they just won't develop at all, as that could threaten to upset the cast chemistry. But there have been a couple here and there that I've been able to get into over the years. Of course, we have My Hero Academia, though I feel no shame over that. On the other hand, I still kind of like Inuyasha. I don't know if it's nostalgia or what, but Inuyasha has all the trappings of a shonen, and I still can't help but like it. Even the OST still gets me jazzed, not to mention big swords. Many years ago, I found a copy of Season 1 on DVD in a Zellers for $4.99, and I just couldn't help myself. Mind you, it was likely $4.99 because they referred to him as a HAL demon on the back, but man, $4.99 is $4.99, and you get over 600 minutes of Kagome, many of which is Kagome riding a bike, and you still never see up her skirt. Teenage me's dreams continue to die. I also gotta throw some love for Green Green. This show sucks, but yes, I love it. You guys know by now I like my humor pretty darn lowbrow, and the humor in Green Green is a lot like how I'd expect my firstborn child to turn out.
Borderline retarded?
Every joke panders to the lowest common denominator sex-starved weeaboo. The plot is almost non-existent, seeming only to be there at all because the show would need a way to progress and end. It's non-stop perversion in a way that most people would say is too much. But absurdity is also a kink of mine, so I never once had an issue with it. Another show that came to me as an unexpected love, a short while after rewatching Berserk and then watching Gantz and Black Lagoon for the first time, I wanted to mix things up a little bit. I don't know how this got into my playlist, but I gave it a try, and K-On! Is a goddamn beautiful show. Such magical innocence as all these girls learn to play instruments for the first time and make a band together. Yui singing cheesy songs for Ui called You and I mean, come on, it's just too stupidly adorable. And of course, who could forget pickle eyebrows? The characters feel emotionally grounded and their relationships do feel real, which led to a sort of shattering of innocence, or at least an emotional coming of age, before the whole show wrapped up. And yes, I got a little choked up. It was just so hard not to feel for the characters. I feel like I related to the show really well too, because this is the same crap I was doing in high school. Learning to play guitar for the first time and jamming with friends. Only our songs were mostly about like death and shit, I think. To be honest, our lyrics never really made that much sense to me. And just off the cuff here, I want to throw in a few more shows with little to no explanation. My First Girlfriend is a Gal. Dub only. It's an amazing dub that, to the disappointment of many people, took a lot of liberties with the original script, but it turned what was an otherwise pretty bad or boring show into a downright hilarious one.
I'll even let you touch my boobs.
Hell Teacher Nube, a sort of Monster of the Week show where a teacher with a demon hand looks after his students. The whole thing feels more innocent than it really is, and it just gels with me in a way that makes me feel nostalgic over a show that I never watched. And School Days and Elfenlied. School Days only because the end is such a cherry on top of the shit-flavored ice cream that it needs to be seen to be believed. And Elfenlied for the same reason I liked David Cage games. Hell, the plot has a lot in common with David Cage games, yet so much of it still resonates with me on a base level. P.S. Bible Black has an okay plot. I'm hoping at this point that not much of this comes as a big surprise for any of you. I feel like I have been pretty open about the good things that I like and about the shit that I like, just the things that I like in general. But what follows is going to be some more personal life stuff that doesn't really come out much on this channel, and the sort of things that you might want to distance yourself from me if you consider yourself a self-respecting person. The Room is one of my all-time favorite movies. Since finding it around 2010, I've seen it more than anything else in my life. The only other close contenders aren't exactly blockbusters either. Movies like Black Dynamite and Sex Drive, which I still quote among friends regularly to this day. When I was 11, I bought my first CD. It was Nickelback's Silver Side Up. I still think this album is okay. Same with this one. And God forbid this one too. I'm a metalhead at heart, but Joanna Newsom is one of my favorite artists. I own all of her albums. Shreddies are the best cereal. Peanut butter and Cheez Whiz together make a pretty darn tasty sandwich.
Hell yeah!
I like the taste of butter and would regularly eat butter mixed with sugar as a snack growing up, because I am secretly a fat man in a skinny man's body.
That's still pretty good.
Though I haven't drank it in a long while, Colt 45 is actually pretty good. Amateur stuff is way better than professional stuff. And the Mortal Kombat movie still gets me pumped. It's kind of garbage, I know, and not what it should have been, but the music and some rather fun martial arts stuff really pull it through for me as a thoroughly entertaining watch every time I see it, which is multiple times a year. And though I could say a lot more, especially about personal life stuff, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Weird video, right? Weird video. Anyway, that was the Patreon requested video of the month. If you guys like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share the video if you can. Links to all my socials, Twitters, Patreon, Discord, all that stuff is in the description below. And as always, folks, thanks for watching.